In this video, this will show you how to graph a system of inequalities where you're doing two inequalities at once. And this first one is kind of unique because all we have is an x. We don't have a y in this equation. So remember, if it only has one variable, it only goes through the axis of that one variable. So on x is greater than 2, it only goes through the x-axis, and it goes through the x-axis at a value of 2. Now because it's greater than, it'll be a dotted line. And it's a little bit different because there's only an x in it. We don't really look at it shading above or below. We look at it as if we're shading left to right. So x is greater than 2. It's a dotted line. It'll be open because it's less than or greater than. Let's go ahead and draw our line at x equals 2. And again, it should be dotted. Greater than on the x-axis will be pointing to the right, so we'll shade to the right. Now if this would have been y greater than 2, we would be shading above the line because we're dealing with a y. Now remember, we're just going to just mark our graph with some light lines. This would be a good way to go, is vertical or horizontal on this one. And then when we graph our other area, our final area has to be an area that belongs to both graphs, and you'll see that here in just a second. Now we'll graph the inequality. Y is greater than or equal to a negative 1/2 x plus 3. We'll go ahead and make our table. We start with 0 for our first x. Our denominator is 2, so we'll use 2 and a negative 2 for our second and third values for our x's. Now we'll get out our calculator and figure the different values. Negative 1/2 x. X is 0 for the first one, plus 3. So first value is 0 and 3. Now we'll change that 0 to a positive 2. And that will give us a value of 2. So our next point is the ordered pair of 2 and 2. Now we'll change that 2 to a negative 2. And that gives us a positive 4. Okay, let's graph our second line. I have 0 and 3. Plotting our points and graphing our line. 0 and 3. 2 on the right, 2 up, and then a negative 2 to the left, and 4 up. There we go. And now the line will be solid. It's greater than or equal to, so it'll be a solid line, meaning that it is closed. And our shading, because it is greater than, will be shading above the line. So make sure you use a nice straight edge to get your lines going exactly the way they need to. I'm kind of messing this one up. I'm going to take my other point the other way and see if I can make this look a little bit better. There we go. Now this line is solid. Now let's go ahead and shade everything above this line, and we'll see which parts of the graph are shaded twice. And that should be our final area because it has to belong to both graphs. So it's that, you can see that it's going to be that top right hand corner right there where we see that it's shaded twice. That is our final area, where those points in there will satisfy both inequalities, just not one. That's the area that's shaded twice. Now let's jump over and do number 6. So our final area is right there. Okay, number 6. This is a little bit more interesting as far as the equation. Let's go ahead and graph our points. The first x will be 0. And then my denominator is 2, so I'll use 2 and a negative 2. I'll get my calculator and put my values in so I don't make any mistakes with my signs. Be careful to type it in correctly. 3 divided by 2 times 0 in parentheses minus 2 will give me a negative 2. Change the 0 to a positive 2. That will give me 1. And now when I do the next one, I'll use the negative 2. And if I've graphed it correctly, I should end up with a nice straight line. So I have negative 0, negative 2. Let's graph that one. And it's important to remember that our line is going to be, it is dotted because it is greater than. Make sure you use a straight edge. So there's 0, negative 2. There is 2 and 1. And there is my line. Now this is greater than, so I'll shade above. And remember, just make some light lines going one way. And I'm going to do vertical on this one. It doesn't matter if you do vertical or horizontal, as long as you can pick out in your final area, it will be the area that's shaded twice. Alright, very good. Now let's graph our second line, and I'm going to do this in red to make it show up a little bit better. So y is greater than a negative x plus 3. My denominator on this is 1. So my x and y values, 0 for the first one, negative or 1 for the second one, and a negative 1 for the third one. Now let's go ahead and find the y values by using my calculator. So I have 3. I put 1 in there. And I think I should get a 2. Yep. 1 and 2. And if I use a negative 1 in for the x, I think it should give me 4. Let's see what I get. Yep, I get 4. Now let's graph these points, and I'll do this one in red. 0 and 3 is right there. I have 1 and 2 is right there. Negative 1 and 4 is right there. I'll go ahead and draw my line, and it's going to be dotted because it's greater than, and because it's greater than, I'm going to shade above the line. There I go, that's close enough. So there's my line. And now on the first equation for my shading, I use vertical lines. So on my second line, my second shading, I'm going to use horizontal lines, and where it's shaded twice, yeah, you can see where it's going to be shaded twice. There we go. That's my final area. So all the points ordered pair in that area satisfies the first equation as well as the second equation, so it is my solution. Okay, thanks for watching and have a good evening.